Hello, 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 our beautiful, beautiful friends. Thank you for being here with Loving with Hadia podcast, YouTube, Facebook. And we have Happy with us, Happy the dog, who I love and adore, and my beautiful, beautiful friend, Angela, Angel Girl, I call her. Angela and I have been friends well over 20 years, and we support each other and love each other, and we have an amazing co-creative loving relationship. I invite you to go on my website. I'm here to support you. I am a life coach, spiritual counselor, fulfillment coach. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. And book your sessions. I'm here for you to support you. And Angela is also an amazing healer. And if you would like to work with Angela, please reach out to me and I will forward your message. You can work with me, HadiaLoving.com, or both of us actually, because we do different things. And today we're going to continue the conversation of forgiveness, and we're going to do specific tools that have been useful for us. I'm going to share a few tools, and so is Angela. So our first conversation was in general, and we did what worked for us, and I have specific tools, and these are just few. There's so many tools, and the reason we're doing this is we want to invite you to find the tools that work for you, that support you, that help you release, clear, and cleanse and free you from judgment, from pain through forgiveness, forgiving. Give it away. It's giving for giving. Um, and it's really useful to clear the judgment and the pain. Angela, would you like to say anything before we move on into the tools?
Sure. Just, you know, I feel very touched that we, in talking about forgiveness in our last video, actually saw a real spike in views, and it just feels that it's such a timely topic right now, and that it's so worth spending more time on it. I know that life is filled with synchronicities. And since we've started this conversation between the two of us and then expanded it in the videos, I can't even begin to tell you how everywhere I look, like whether it's like, oh, a TV show that I watched like 3 years ago. And, now I'm finally realizing, I don't know when they made the final season, but I'll watch it. And the episode that I start on is all about this process of forgiveness and integration. And it's just happened day after day. And it's not just something that we're talking about just for everybody else. It's like there's always this healing process that happens inside of us. This is touching so many areas in my own life. And as I'm doing a review of the work I already know and that I share with others, like I am also gaining such compassion and freedom, which which makes me even more excited just to have a wider conversation. And as you said, we talked last time about the tools in particular that we employ in our personal practices, but we are spiritual scientists, and everybody is going to have something different that works for them. So I think it's a great opportunity just to expand on that and say more about what might work for other people than what we shared previously.
Yes. And so I'm going to start. Just dive right in.
Go for it.
The first tool that calls to me and that works for me, and like I said earlier, this is one of many, just to offer things. It's compassion. Having compassion for myself and what I went through and the pain that I went through, and seeing myself, hearing myself, and telling myself it's okay. It's okay that I went through that. A lot of the judgments and the pain comes from victim mentality, victim consciousness, and feeling victimized and acting like a victim. Like, why would anyone do this to me? Why did they single me out? Why this? Why that? And the truth is, people don't single us out. We're just prey to them. people in the world, they're predators. Survival of the fittest. Most of us are predators in some areas of our life or another. Like competition is a predator behavior, predator energy. So having compassion that I didn't do anything wrong. I just happened to be in this place with this person who felt that they can violate me, they can hurt me. And having compassion with, again, with all the pain that I've been through, and writing all this down. Writing is a very, very powerful tool. Write down all the ways I was hurt. I invite you to write down all the ways you got hurt through this incident, through this circumstance, through this person. And most of us get hurt by people who we love, we adore, we need in our lives. So have compassion for yourself. And what does that look like? For me, I visualize that I am a small child sitting on the lap of Divine Mother, my understanding of Divine Mother. And she's wrapping her arms around me and comforting me and petting my hair and telling me it's okay. It's okay to grieve. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to cry. It's okay to scream. It's okay to feel the pain. And doing this after you did all the process in getting to forgiveness. So first there's a whole huge process of being upset, of feeling guilty, of feeling ashamed, of feeling resentful, of hating the person, of maybe feeling you want to kill the person, feeling you want to kill yourself. I mean, pain shows up in a lot of different layers, and allow yourself the different layers of expression, and please do not act out on them. Just feel and don't act out. And invoke your inner loving, inner compassion to be a witness for your process. Most of us, when we hurt, we abandon ourselves and we reject ourselves. So we get hurt and then we reject ourselves. And so it's the double the pain, triple the pain. So I invite you to have compassion and do not do anything to hurt yourself or anyone else. Be a witness and be like, it's okay. Of course you're hurting. Somebody violated you. Of course you're going to feel bad. So having compassion, doing action steps of compassion, taking a bath, stand under the shower, run hot water, cozy up in a cozy blanket, go out and buy yourself cozy pajamas or robe, and just sit and be and listen to nice music, classical music, ocean music. So do action steps of tenderness and compassion, and keep affirming, I am showing up for myself. I am showing up for myself. I have compassion for myself as I go through this process of releasing and forgiving the hurt that I feel inside of me. It could be physical hurt, it could be emotional hurt, it could be mental hurt, it could be spiritual hurt. We get hurt spiritually as well. So be with yourself and have compassion. And if you don't know what compassion is, learn about it. Look up the definition in the dictionary. It's empathy and sympathy. Have sympathy for yourself and cultivate compassion inside of you, feeling compassion. A lot of us don't know what compassion is and how to have compassion. So I invite you to take your hand and place it on your heart space and start feeling sweetness and tenderness. Like if you see a little puppy that is crying for their mommy, it's like, oh, it invokes compassion inside of you. That's a learning for you. And it's, what do I call it? Gosh, it's slipping my mind. A reference point. That's what it is. It's a reference point. Invoke reference points of compassion that you had and have for other people and for animals or birds or the planet, and invoke that for yourself. A lot of us give other people what we need. Give yourself compassion and loving. Angela, I know you want to add on this, and I invite you to, so please go ahead.
Sure. And
We
yeah,
can talk
and
about
there's
that the
just,
whole 10 hours, right?
I know. I mean, I've told you, like my brain is just like a popcorn popper lately. There is so much going off all the time, and you know, I want to in a way to rein it in, but I'm so nonlinear. um,
It's a good
so
thing.
I mean, you talked about you just talked about pain, and pain feels very real, and I'm not interested in continuing to spin the story. Like I myself right now have had just a complete like news and media and everything like abstinence. um, because it's not serving me, but there's still a reality that we're all in right now, and an opportunity to reframe that reality. And you know, our ideas were so much the same, that bringing compassion as a big thread into this piece in this conversation was going to be really key for both of us to share. So um, in the process that we are all going through, like I read an article a couple of weeks ago now, I think it was in the Washington Post, and what month is it now? We're still in February. They were referencing in January, like a survey had been done where 41% of Americans were expressing some form of depressive or anxiety disorder. And kind of going back to when COVID and or at least the lockdown really started in May last year, 2020, it was up from 34%. And I bring that up just to say that the pain that people are experiencing because of the things that have happened in their own lives, because of the things that we're all, you know, as human beings on this planet right now going through it as well. The pain that we feel that's associated with social distancing is just as real as the pain of any other kind of trauma that we go through. So in order to apply compassion and loving to ourselves for our own stories, in addition to kind of the, you know, the lifeboat of survival globally we find ourselves in, again, this is such a relevant practice right now, because every time, well, even with the social distancing, you know, we experience the, the added levels of stress hormones. And all the studies about forgiveness therapies also show that it brings more oxytocin back into your body. It brings more serotonin back into your body. When you're not feeling like productive or focused, it brings productivity and clarity and all of these conditions back. So it's like we can completely not only reshuffle our, you know, our biochemistry deck, but we can tell a new story, and instead of feeling helpless and identified with the pain, we can bring our awareness to this moment by practicing control over the things that seem out of our control. We can choose a new response, we can choose a new behavior, and if the response with the lack of comfort in what is continuously changing is a response, a locus of control that comes from loving. I'm uncomfortable, but I can trust in this moment, even if I don't know anything else that's going to happen, that I can come back to loving. I can come back to a place of peace, that I can show that same loving and understanding and peace to another who in this moment may not be present.
Yeah.
And I like a really important thing about, I don't know, a benefit of this, I would say, is that anytime we are in that pain, you know, like I was going through this personally last night. I kind of did a cleansing healing ceremony for myself where I'm counting all of these experiences that have happened in my life in the last couple of years. In addition to that Washington Post article was just saying, you know, also that marker of, you know, now we're almost a year into this. It's, you know, the whole preface of the article was that like everybody is just kind of hitting a wall, no matter how positive you were and what practices you had, like nobody really thought a year later we'd still be going through it, you know. So last night I was just looking at that, all of these situations for myself and, you know, doing exactly what you said. Being able to get out of the spin of it, which there's nothing happening in this moment. in reality, here I am sitting and talking with you, my beautiful friend, who always is a loving presence for me, having an opportunity to share like our experience and our tools with people. And for me, that is just being so on purpose. That is what brings love and joy to me. It's exactly what I want to be doing in the world. And, you know, you have your happy and I've got my two little familiars here. Anubis is always passing by on the couch when we do this. And, you know, they also bring me so much joy and love. So the truth right now is that everything in my life is perfect, but I still feel, I can still feel this anxiety, this holding of the breath, this thing that I've been doing lately, even with all the tools that I have. So last night, I was able to, sometimes compassion is something that we can automatically give ourselves. And then the outpouring of it allows us to give it to others. And sometimes when we don't know how to give it or receive it for ourselves, sometimes we can think of others and feel compassionate and loving towards them. And then that will spill over back to us. So that was kind of my process last night. But it's just really beautiful that it works that way, that we can be that mirror to one another. And whatever the angle for it is, if it's hard for one to receive loving or to have compassion for themselves, like you were saying, like I can always look to my, you know, my beautiful little kitty cats, my familiars, because there's just innocence there. You know, other people might, when they think, how do I source compassion? Because I don't know how to do that, or I'm not good at doing that. We've said it before, every practice is flexing a muscle. And the more you flex the muscle, the more you have access to that higher part of the self versus the story that keeps your, you know, your breath being held and the panic happening when the truth right now is that there's nothing happening that's out of my control. There's nothing real. You know, we talk about fear being false evidence appears real. There's nothing in this moment that relates to all of my personal crazy life stories of the last couple of years or anything, you know, related to the events of this last year globally. Like I am sitting in a place of loving and peace. And I can choose to recognize what's coming up for me, and we need to, but I don't have to identify with it. And that was the process last night. The process last night was, you know, I'm feeling this sadness. I'm feeling this anxiety. I'm recognizing I'm holding my breath. I'm recognizing that my heart is aching for, you know, this circumstance I'm aware of, or that circumstance that I'm aware of. But at the same time, I do not have to be the pain. I don't have to be the anxiety. I don't even have to be sorry for myself or any other person in a situation, because we are all already complete. We are all already whole. And as long as I see myself, no matter what's showing up now, is capable and whole, and no matter what somebody else is going through, as long as I can see them already whole and capable, uh, then what you were saying about holding the space and holding the one having the pain, it was my same process last night. I sat with the part that hurt. I sat with a part that related to the pain,
Yes.
but I could be distanced from that part, even though it's part of my own being, while embracing it. And then while feeling, I call it like the nesting doll, like the Russian dolls that are like one inside of the other, inside of the other. Like just feeling so many arms around so many arms. And when I said I had to watch the TV show that brought this same thing up, I don't want to do like spoiler alerts, but it was Mr. Robot season 4 and episodes 8 and 9. Like there was the main character who then went back to a childhood trauma, who met his inner child, who had an experience. He had a judgment about how he could have been there. He could have done it different. He said, I'm sorry, I didn't fight, and that child responded, but you did fight and you fought for me. And then he went back and had an experience with a family member, that perpetrated a trauma, but that you just see like every part has an experience of pain and separation from the pain, and then an ability to come back together into wholeness and to tell a new story about, what we always did do right, about how we're always trying to serve the greatest good, and to allow through loving and understanding and compassion and integration of all of those parts, not into an idealized story of how we think we're supposed to be perfect or show up, all the time. But to say like all of these parts cumulatively are moving together towards love and greater understanding.
Yeah.
And all of these parts live inside of me. I have the child within me. I have the 20-year-old, and I have something so much more than that. I have the higher self or spirit, the divine loving essence, as we called it in our school program. All of this is all of who we all are.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is expansive. And I want to move on. I want to like share as many tools as we can
Yeah.
I want to move on. A second tool that I think is really, really valuable. And this is not in the order of best or least. This is just putting out tools for you to consider and practice and see if they work for you. So they're not in any order. The second one that's really valuable is having compassion for the person who hurt you, who betrayed you, who violated you. Having compassion and forgiveness for your betrayer. So it's challenging to forgive somebody if we don't humanize them. If we see them as a perpetrator or a violator or someone who is out to get us, it's challenging to forgive and release us. So forgiveness again is for you. You forgive for you, you don't forgive for the other person. And to know that hurt people. The reason this person became a perpetrator, a violator, because they were violated. A lot of people get violated from birth. I've worked with clients that can tell you like horror show stories. It's like, what? And then they learn to forgive because it's for them. So have compassion and know that they had a story and they had a horrifying story. None of us are born to go out there and hurt people and hurt ourselves. It's a learned behavior, and trusting that. Like some people say, well, I don't know about that. Some people are born evil. It's not true. All of us are born loving, kind, joyous, free, zestful. I say this all the time because it's valuable to hear, especially when you're hurting. When you're hurting, to know that this person is a loving person and they forgot because they got hurt severely. And there's been many, many research on this. All of us, I think most of us know this. If you grew up in an alcoholic home, most likely you'll become an alcoholic, or you would never touch alcohol. It'll be like an evil thing in your life. And both spectrums are not good. It's learning the balance. So have compassion for the person who hurt you. Have empathy and see their humanity, see their struggles, see their pain, see their insecurities, and send them loving from your heart to their spirit, to their soul, to their humanity. And I'm not saying it's saying, oh, it's okay that they did this to me. No, it's not colluding with them, and it's not in agreement either. It's in saying, okay, this is a soul, a spirit in a human body, and their human experience must be awful for them to be driven to this point. Um, yeah, and have compassion for that. The violators have been violated, and good people, I've been violated. I don't want to speak for you, but Angela, you've been violated too. All of us have, and we make choices. Like I choose loving, but the thing is that I've done is I turned on myself, and I would violate myself and I would hurt myself with the pain I was feeling. And that also, violation comes in many different forms. One of the violation I did to people is I shut them out of my life. I'm like, nope, I'm not going to let anyone be close to me. I'm going to love people from a distance. That's actually also a violation. Not allowing people in, not sharing presence and love with people, being guarded and protected all the time. So having compassion for yourself and for the person, it brings you together, and so you can release them. When you are in difference, they're actually taking up so much energy inside of you because you think about them all the time and you're wondering if they're going to still hurt you. And you're playing over the movie in your head, and it becomes a fantasy. It becomes a past fantasy that you're creating in this present moment. So notice how you occupy your time, your thoughts, your feelings, and also your action steps. Not too long ago, I was violated by this person who stopped me on the street and kept talking to me and then started driving slow next to me. It felt like a violation. And now that when I go out of my home, I'm looking around to see if this person followed me to my house, if they're stalking me. So a part of me is being consumed by that, and I'm giving my energy away. So for me, the right thing to do is notice how it's stealing my time and my thoughts and my feelings and my energy, and how it stops me from going out freely and feeling safe in my neighborhood like I used to, and to forgive that person. Because the truth is, people don't know any better. If we know better, we do better. When we learn to do better, we do better. We really do. And trusting in your humanity and your compassion, and have compassion for every single person who have hurt you in some way. That is a step of releasing, clearing, and cleansing yourself, freeing yourself from your attachment to the pain that you're holding on to inside of yourself. Compassion for yourself, compassion for the person who you perceive has violated you. Because most people are not out to get us, they're just being hurt and they go around hurting everyone else. Not everybody, a lot of people do.
Mhm. And compassion allows you to move, and compassion through loving forgiveness in particular, it allows us to move from the place of unconsciousness into a place of conscious awareness. And that is really what being in the moment is about. You know, you are talking about people who have been violated themselves. You know, there's two different routes that it takes. Some people become a perpetrator of the pain that was put upon them. And it's like an external expression. They lash out and they put it on somebody else. And it's unconscious. They don't want to do it. It is because through the pain of our separation from loving and through the identification with that pain, that we continue in whatever way we do to bring more of it upon ourselves or to bring more of it into our life. So there are people who may put that pain onto another. And then there are people who, you know, we've said before, will continue to inflict pain upon themselves. It might be by deflecting loving. It might be by not being able to sit with your hand on your heart and receive compassion for yourself. Or it might be left over from, you know, your response in childhood to trauma was to make up the story for yourself of, you know, oh, I'm not worthy, or I deserve this. And we often then, from that perspective, go through life. If somebody else wounded us once upon a time, even if we're not in a dynamic with another person where that same trauma is reinflicted, we become the one that wounds ourselves just by running the loop of the story.
Yeah.
And so, you know, so often people take the place of a past abuser by carrying the same voice and victimizing themselves in the same way, just by spinning that loop. So coming into present awareness and compassion is bringing us out of that loop. It's no longer living in the past. It's no longer projecting negative fantasies into the future. You know, when you are able to sit right here and right now, you know, a little bit, as I was saying earlier, with none of those things truly being the reality, we can then come into presence. And when we are in the present moment, all of the loving and the compassion and the ability to, if we're going to make up a story, you know, we may as well win in our own story. We might as well be like the heroes and the heroines in our own hero's journey. So that is what a self-forgiveness practice also invites us to do. And one of the tools I wanted to bring forward today, and I think it's very powerful because it can be used not just in a forgiveness situation, it can be used in any situation in which you just want to call your attention back to the moment. So it's got 3 steps. Pause, center, shift. And there's, of course, layers to those parts. But just to frame it, pause, center, shift, you know, anyone can remember 3 steps. And the important thing to think of is you might be caught up in a moment, like I was last night, like spinning my last couple of years, spinning all these other stories. Might be caught up in a moment. And we have this saying, I keep referring back to our educational program at University of Santa Monica, but so profound. And one of the sayings there was, you know, it's not the issue that's the issue. It's how you're relating to yourself as you're going through the issue. So no matter what's going on in the world, no matter what's happened to me before, It's not about those things. It's what is that story I'm telling myself right now that keeps the trauma or the pain alive. And so how I might say, I'm relating to myself in some of the stories that I have been telling is, first know what the issue is. So to maybe just bring up a simple one, not get into anything too intense, but we did our last video on self-forgiveness and forgiveness. And I after I got the link from you, I watched it. And then I was like, oh no, Hedia, like I don't like this one. I don't want to share it. And I had all this stuff going. And ironically, like it happens today, my brain feels like it's in all these places. And so the judgment comes in like, oh, I should be showing up more clearly than this. I should be showing up more eloquently. Like, I should be, even today, I thought like, I'll share the definitions of, and I haven't done it, the definitions of forgiveness, but it's okay. I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be, like on a stage. I'm not a keynote speaker. Like we're having a conversation. We're being very real in the moment. And again, like every moment is different. Sometimes I'm more clear. Sometimes I'm more focused. Sometimes there's so much on my plate, and I'm just going to share a little bite, right here. Because it doesn't matter. It's not the story. It's about knowing what do I do with what's showing up. So what happened is, you sent me this email back and said, Angela, I thought it was fine. And I'm still caught up in like, oh my gosh, I saw my face. I make all these weird facial gestures. I do all these things. And you're like, no, I think it's fine. And I just, again, like took a breath and I thought, it's so important for us just to allow ourselves to be however we show up. Like we don't have to censor, we don't have to do retakes, we don't always have to be something more than just what we are. It's okay when we are in a process of learning, and we're always in a process of learning. So I might watch a video and say like, oh, I could really work on not saying ums and knows, but so what? Like I'm gaining awareness that I do that. Unless I watch the video, I would never know I did that. But it's a tool by which I can do better, but I don't have to admonish myself. I don't have to carry this judgment of myself. And neither do you, like neither does anybody else. Like I want to share that, even though it's a small thing in life, just to give permission, like just show up where you are. You've joined these calls with headaches, and the important thing is that we show up and we keep continuing to just learn and grow through, what we're aware of and what we think that we can change. So in that moment, I had judgments about myself and how I was showing up. I paused, I heard your feedback, and I just let it wash over me. Like in a way that was like putting my hand on my heart because I'm receiving your words of loving. But I also just moved out of the judgment into the compassion for the one that thought that she had to do different or had to be more or had to be perfect. And I just reeled that in. And then in that moment, I got to become present again, like move out of the identification with the judgment and into the place of compassion. And so it's such an important act to put your hand on your heart. I know for me what it does is maybe every time you see me do that, like you literally see the visceral experience of, oh, like I take a breath again, like I relax again. I get out of that story I was just telling. And I actually get back into my heart. I also get out of the story from the past and how I should do better going forward. And I just come back to right here and right now, like I am in my body. Again, some people have an external response of taking it out on somebody else. Like I'm more internalized, I take it out on myself. But when I'm taking it out on myself, I have an up and out of the body tendency, and trauma will do that for a lot of people. So what happens just now, like it brings myself back to myself. It brings myself back to my center where the loving is, where I'm beyond identification with the story and the pain. I'm now identifying with the loving, compassionate, divine self. And something amazing happens. Loving starts flowing in, centeredness happens. And it's from that place then that the shift, pause, center shift can happen. And in the shift, we've talked before about gratitude. You know, Hedia was mentioning, even if somebody besides myself has wronged me, like I can make a list, you know, I can say, you know, what has this person taught me? When has this person shown up in a way that felt loving, like I had a good experience with them? And in the same way, I can do that with my issue. my issue, oh, you know, I thought I should be perfect. I thought I should be more eloquent. I thought I should not make faces. I thought I should not say, you know, all of these things, like through that loving and that centeredness and that breath that I took in, now I can shift. Now from the compassion and the loving I have for that part that's just learning and actually is gaining awareness of how I might do better next time. I can say, like, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm so grateful for your invitation, Hedia, to create these videos. I'm so grateful for this invitation to share my personal experience and maybe even, you know, personal shortcomings, because we're allowed as children to learn how to stumble and fall. Like we have to crawl before we can walk. And, you know, we never blame the child, like, oh, you can't walk. We're all learning, we're all growing, we're all continuously given an opportunity to see what isn't working so that we can improve. So I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful to share these tools. And from that place of reframing the reality and the gratitude, then there's also that place of forgiveness. It's so easy when I can say, this opportunity allows me the grace of my humanity, the falling down to pick myself back up in my own process. And I can extend that to other people too. So, you know, to go back to the USM method, it may not necessarily work for everybody. Maybe once upon a time it was a stepping stone, but just because it's a stepping stone, if this is new to anybody, you might start with, I forgive myself, as judging myself as needing to do better, as needing to show up like anybody else or needing to show up as perfect. You know, the truth is, like, I am perfect right here, right now. I'm especially perfect when I'm giving loving to myself. I'm especially perfect when I can come into awareness, because when we pause, we create awareness. Awareness is the very first step to changing any process. And even if it's a difficult process, you know, we always say it takes 30 days to make a change in life. So, you know, and again, like Hetty and I have been doing this, you know, easily for 30 years since our education. And there's still times where, like, I have to stop and put my hand on my heart and catch my breath and say, the story I'm telling is not my reality right now. It's the past. It's a possible future, but I can rein it in and come back into loving. I can shift. I can be in gratitude. I can do this forgiveness process for myself or anybody else. And that's a continuation of awareness. That's an opportunity to tell a new story. Like right here and now, I'm perfect. And this allows a story to give permission to everybody else to be in the grace of their own process, no matter what that looks like, no matter what's happening for you. And also know, like I say it all the time, but you're never alone. And you can hold that one that you were at one time, that felt that pain, that feels like a pain that you're feeling now, but realizing it's not really present here and now.
Yeah.
You can create a space between you and that pain and let loving fill the gap. And when we release the pain and open to loving, that's where we're in this field of so much more possibility. And that's where, if we didn't know how to receive for ourselves, or we didn't know how to give it to somebody else, in this moment, that reality, that opportunity, that new ability, even for a second to try to receive, becomes manifest.
I appreciate what you're talking about. For me is you forgive and it turns into gratitude. Forgiveness, it's like love and hate is a fine line. Judgment and gratitude is a fine line. And when we forgive, we are able to be grateful, to see the goodness in our life. When we hold on to the judgment, you hurt me, you violated me, we're not open and we don't see the goodness in our lives. And you talked about putting your hand on your heart space. I love, like, we're so in alignment. And that's the next tool I want to talk about, is laying on the floor. Lay on the floor, turn the heater on and get cozy and lay on your back and place your hand on your heart and connect to your heartbeat and connect to your breathing and really connect. When you connect to your heartbeat and your breathing, you're connecting to yourself. You're bringing yourself back to yourself. And when you are applying self-forgiveness, it's important to show up fully in all of yourself. Show up connected to your body, to your mind, to your emotion, to your spirit, to your soul, and to spirit. What that means is the energy around you. See yourself in the heart of spirit, in the heart of God, in the heart of the universe. Relate to it in the best way that it serves you. And as you're laying there on the floor, connecting to your heartbeat, to your body, to your breath, to your thoughts and your feelings, because as you forgive, you want to shift the energy inside of you. You want to shift that connection from pain to clarity, to loving, to sweetness, to tenderness, and surround yourself with a healing white light. Like, I visualize that I am surrounded in a heart bubble, and it's beautiful, it's radiant. It's I choose the color pink and lavender. Choose any color you want. And I surround myself in those colors. And I breathe. And I grieve at the same time. And I say, it's an affirmation. I release myself. I am free of this pain. I release myself. I am free of this pain. I am healthy. My heart is healed. My heart is healed. My heart is full of loving. It's complete. It's peaceful. I am safe. I am safe in this moment, and I am safe. And I just keep affirming that. And anything else opposite of judgment, opposite of pain, opposite of betrayal, opposite of hurt, I am safe. I am peaceful. I am loved. I am safe. I live in the heart of the universe. The universe loves me. I receive the loving. And keep affirming that and keep grounded. The earth beneath me is supporting my body, my mind, my emotion, my spirit, my soul. I am guided. I am connected to my knowing, my wisdom, my intuition. And keep deepening in those thoughts. I am receiving and I release myself. I am free. I set myself free and I am free. So you do that for a few minutes. And then you visualize the person who hurt you in the loving light. Surround them with a heart. That's another tool. And send them loving and free them. And I usually say, I free myself and I free you. I release myself and I release you. And I visualize myself cutting the cord. There's an energetic cord between us people, all of us. And you can cut the cord. And you can pick, like, it's easier for me to pick colors. I like the golden color. I see there's this cord connected with the person who is hurting me. And I cut it like in my mind's eye, I cut the cord. And then I say, I give you back your energy and I take my energy back. I give you back to you and I take me back. Like I did this a long time ago. My first heartbreak. Oh my goodness. I was, I felt like I went to hell and I lived in darkness. And finally I realized it's because I literally, not like, so I'll say it. I literally emotionally, mentally, spiritually took my heart out of my body. And this is imaginary, and gave it to the person that I was in love with. And when we broke up, I felt so much pain because I didn't have my heart. And so I went and retreated my heart. I'm like, I'm taking my heart back. And I give you your heart back. Retrieving. And from now on, I'm keeping my heart to me. I'm sharing loving with people, with the world. And I keep my heart for me. My heart belongs to me and only me. And that is a form of releasing, giving yourself away. Collect yourself back. One of the reasons we hurt because we give ourselves away to the people we love and we care about, and they end up violating us. Sometimes it's because it's too much responsibility. My heart, when I gave it away, it was too much responsibility for that person to take care of. I needed to learn to take care of my heart, of my loving. So I needed to forgive myself. I didn't know any better. That's what I saw in movies. That's what I heard in songs, in poetry. You know, you give your heart away. It's so romantic.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness gracious. And I was young, I was in my 20s. And it's forgiving myself for misunderstanding the lesson. I got confused by the messages that came at me. I didn't understand that giving my heart away was a violation to myself. So retreating yourself, bringing yourself back to you while you're laying on the floor and keeping your heart. So you want to put one hand on your heart space, another hand on your belly, where your belly button is, because that's where our inner child and our pain usually resides. And visualizing that you are loving your body, you're loving your mind, you're loving your emotions, your spirit, your soul, and your loving spirit. You're in the loving. And then if you do this, you feel this beautiful vibration going in your body as you're releasing and retreating yourself, bringing yourself back to you, claiming the parts of you that you gave away to people. Yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. And should we move on to the next few tools because of the time? It's up to you. Or do you want to say something?
Well, what I was just going to
Yes, please.
add to that is you know, the the process of being with yourself in such that intimate way, and bringing in that compassion and that kind of visualization, um, you know, that is so much where the transformation comes in. But um, some people still get very, very stuck if this is something that's difficult for you to do, to bring the compassion to yourself, or to have the compassion for the other. You know, we talked before about, you know, when you get to the place of forgiveness, sometimes people just aren't ready. You know, when we're talking about, like in my context of sharing pause, center, shift, some people have a hard time centering because they don't know how to accept the loving. Some people don't know, they're just not ready to shift because they're not ready to change. And so if there's difficulty actually even coming to that point in the process, you know, what you shared and the process of that is so beautiful. But if you're not able to get there, you can do a similar process, only rather than laying with yourself and grounding yourself on, you know, by laying down or touching your heart and your belly. Like you might, if you're still in a mental process, start with something that's a little bit more of a mental process, until you can move into the heart. So I would consider doing a very similar process, but, you know, we can get confused. Like our mind loves to get us tangled up to where we, in that moment of feeling still kind of like in the shock and the pain, can't even tease apart the pieces to know what to do next. If you're able to even just journal, you know, you may not in the moment be able to pause and bring loving to the situation and do your own shift, but you can revisit it later. You can ask yourself, you know, well, what was the issue? What happened in your week review? Maybe your process would, your 30-day process, if that's what you need to do, would be, you know, once per week. You could start with something small. Start with something you actually know that you're going to be able to do. You want to fulfill your commitment to yourself first and foremost. That's a self-loving action. And an easy way to do it then would be, get it out of your mind, put it onto paper, so you can literally see what's churning in here, like in the 3D. And sometimes where your brain gets kind of tricky or wants you to like hold on to that hurt or be justified in a pain or your good reason why you're not lovable, or whatever the story is, when the story gets out of your head and onto paper, then you can actually start seeing where the untruths in the story that you're running lie. And then you can counteract that, because we've got committees inside of ourselves that are telling the one story, and on the other hand, there's that loving part that like wants to reach out in compassion. So, you know, you can journal, what was the issue, what happened, how was I feeling, when have I felt like this before, and then know whatever the issue is, it's how you're relating to yourself as you're going through it. So the opportunity then to center, like really, you're recognizing an opportunity to liberate yourself from the pain. So know why you're doing it. When you put your hand on your heart and you're saying, what's the opportunity here, you know, to anchor loving into this story, or to bring self-forgiveness to this situation. Again, you're accessing and strengthening your ability to come into compassion every time you do that. Every glimmer of how can I retell this? How can I bring loving in? So I think an important point to make is that in the English language, it's very strange. We say things all the time like, oh, I'm angry, I'm depressed, I'm so tired, whatever, you know, whatever the I am is. But you're not those things. Those things are a feeling you're having in a moment. And sometimes we get in a loop, like a boomerang effect of like drawing that back all the time and thinking that's what we are. But that's not what you are or who you are. That's an experience you are having. So in that journaling process, when I was doing Qigong, is a greater practice than I do now. There was a saying, my mind is mine, but it is, or my thoughts are mine, but they are not who I am. My emotions are mine, but they are not who I am. And my body is mine, but it's not who I am. So this is an opportunity through coming into loving to see that those are experiences that you have, but they do not have to be the environment you're constantly in. You can tell yourself a new story. It's an experience that I'm having,
Yeah.
and I can breathe into it and I can let it go. And on the other side of that, what more is possible? Oh, you can also go back to our video on, what was it called? The veil,
Yeah.
which is if you're stuck in a place, like if you're in a wall, no matter what it is, and you can't see to the other side, maybe that would be a good video to refer back to how you might get to the other side. But you can know that you're worthwhile. You can know that the transformation, even if you don't feel it in that moment, what is the antithesis? What's on the other side? What's the opposite of like I'm angry? Maybe it's like I feel joyful. And then think of the things again that bring you joy. It could be your kitty cat, it could be your dog, it could be like your child, a grandchild. It could be maybe you sing or play, like an instrument or whatever it is that like just punctuates your life with joy and brings a flow of love in. Like find a way to anchor to that in that moment. Sometimes, mystic poetry, like, will bring me into my loving. So know what your happy place is, know what that thing is for you, and let that be your resource to bring the loving in and to do your shift. And then again, look at what your reframe is. What were you able to learn through that moment of loving, through that updated story, through that forgiveness that's possible? The story that I told myself, like an update, it might be like, I have compassion for the little girl that that felt, weird on the playground and weird in my family and didn't use my voice or held back because it felt different. I am not that little girl anymore. I don't have to keep carrying that. I am this grown woman. I have a powerful voice. And I can share through loving, my pain and the beauty of the other side of my pain both. So tell your own story, journal it, or lay on the floor. But again, find what works for you and know the ways that you can access your loving and come into your compassion to create that shift in your own life.
Yeah, and I love that you keep affirming about self-loving, self-caring, self-nurturing, and to do it gently, one step at a time. And the emotional maturity tool this is really, really powerful to understand. So this is for emotional maturity, that after forgiveness, because like I said earlier, a lot of times we get violated by people we love and care about, our family members, our partners, either in friendship or in marriage or in business. Give yourself permission to walk away. I do this work with clients. They feel stuck. They're like, well, I'm married to this person, or I have a business of 20 years with this person. And I'm like, I'm giving you permission to walk away. It takes courage and emotional maturity to walk away from someone who is not demonstrating respect loving, caring for you. And people love us in the best way they know how. And sometimes their best is painful. It's hurtful. And it's your responsibility to walk away from people who violate you. You got to take care of you first and foremost. And when you do that, you're actually taking care of them, because then they might feel rejected and upset, but they might pause and look at, why did this person leave me? It will serve them to start behaving better, to start loving themselves, caring for themselves. Because hurt people, correct? So I think most of us agree on this. And this person who's hurting, they start hurting people and they don't know that they're hurting. They forget. And when you walk away from them and take care of yourself, you're giving them an opportunity to maybe start introspecting. So I give you permission to walk away from people who violate you and hurt you. And like I said, it takes a lot of courage to do that. It's not easy for us because we love the person. We love them so dearly and deeply. Like they are the love of our life. And I don't care if it's your son, your daughter, your wife, your husband, your life partner, or your business partner. You deserve better. Just because you're forgiving the person's behavior, it doesn't mean they're going to change. They might not change. So it's your emotional maturity, mental maturity, and physical responsibility to walk away, to go start a new life, and to bless them on their way. You know, one of the things I've been doing for years is I would be upset at the person. I'd be like, that mother, blah, 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 blah. And then I would say, God bless them and keep them far away from me. After I let the upset out, you got to let the upset out. You got to let the anger out. I'm human. I get angry. I get resentful. I get upset. I got to release it. Then I come back to center, to my loving, to my kindness. And the best thing I can do for me and that person who violated me is to walk away from them and to release them from my life, physically release them. And I don't do it like by calling and saying, I'm breaking up with you. Well, if you need to have that conversation, you need to have that conversation. But I also do it within myself. Like I'm releasing myself. And with people that you feel you can't walk away from and they still do violating behavior, you set boundaries. You clearly set boundaries. And we should do another episode on this. Not forgiveness,
On
but
boundaries.
on boundaries. Boundaries. A lot of
It's a big one.
yeah, a lot of people don't know how to set boundaries. They hear it, but they don't really know how to do it. I didn't know how to set boundaries. You know, I grew up in boarding school when I was little. We went to, and there was no boundaries. There was 7 girls in one room. We shared the bathroom. So boundaries is really valuable and important. And you set loving, forgiving boundaries for yourself. That you're not going to allow yourself to be in the presence of someone who is verbally, emotionally, and sometimes physically violating you and spiritually. Like if you go to a church that's spiritually violating you and telling you you're not good enough, you don't deserve God's loving, you need to stop going to that church. You forgive that church and you stop going and you find community that is on your level of self-caring, self-loving, self-nurturing. So give yourself permission to walk away, to end a relationship, quit the job. You know, even like with things we have, a car. I had a car that my mechanic is like, this car is going to kill you. And I'm like, okay, I need to break up with the car. Because I took it to him to fix it. That was years ago. And he's like, Hadia, the car stopped on the freeway while I was going 65 miles an hour. I could have died. And so I'm like, okay, I'm releasing the car. And I forgave myself for driving a car that wasn't safe. It wasn't safe for me to be driving it. I deserve to have a better car. So I went and bought a new car because I deserve that. I deserve to to take care of my well-beingness. And that's my body, my mind, my emotion, my spirit, my soul. So forgiveness comes with action steps as well. You forgive yourself and then figure out what action steps you need to take care of yourself. You need to move, you need to break up, you need to quit a job, you need to get a new car, you need to get new clothes. Sometimes some people don't buy themselves new clothes. You deserve to nurture yourself. Eating healthier food, drinking good water. Not every bottled water is the same. So I give you permission to walk away from people, places, and things that don't love you, don't care about you, don't serve you. And that way you're up-leveling your self-caring, your emotional maturity, your mental maturity, your spiritual awareness, and your soul's journey.
I'm totally spacing out on the guy's name right now. But a biologist that worked with stem cells, and he's well known, but it's just not happening in my head at the moment. But kind of his story is that, you know, if you have a group of cells in a petri dish and they're not doing well, you don't blame the cells. You know, you say, well, what's going on in that environment that the cells aren't thriving? So you figure out, well, how can I make a more healthy environment? You know, you don't blame the cell, you blame the culture. and it's the same with us. It's like, if you are not thriving, if you even are doing everything that you know to do for you, but you are still in an environment that's unhealthy, if you're still in an environment where, you know, others' behaviors are not a frequency match for you, and it's hard sometimes, because the more that you come into living, the more that you shift and grow, the more that you update your stories, the people in your life have a hard time with it. They don't want to necessarily get left behind. And sometimes in an unintentional or an intentional but unconscious way, they'll even try to derail you from stepping up and from growing, because they don't want to lose you, but they may try to keep you small. And so,
want to grow.
Yes.
Because you're challenging their growth. When we grow, we challenge the people around us. We challenge our families, our friends, and growth is scary. It takes courage to want to change. I apologize for interrupting you, but I'm excited about this. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Bruce Lipton.
Yay!
Was the guy, but exactly.
Yeah. So walk away, change your environment. And it doesn't mean you don't love the people that you love. You love them, but sometimes we got to love people from over there, from a distance. Like, I love everyone who I've been in relationship with, either friendships or working or clients or lovers, but they're not a fit in my life, and they don't deserve to be in my life, and I don't deserve to be in their life. It's not like that I'm better than them or they're better than me. We're not a match anymore. And releasing them helps them, and releasing me helps me. So release yourself from anything and everything that is not nurturing you, loving you, taking care of you. Move on. And you do people a favor when you move on, and you're doing yourself a favor. All right, in wrap up, these are some of the tools of forgiveness. There's much, much more. And I invite you to really take a look at forgiveness and choose tools that support you. And again, we forgive for ourselves. We don't forgive for people. It's releasing you. It's stepping into your freedom, your joy, your love, your bounty, your thriving and flourishing, and emotional maturity. It takes emotional maturity to forgive someone because we're releasing ourselves. And the reason it takes courage and emotional maturity because we don't know who we're going to be without that pain. You don't know who you're going to be on the other side of the pain, and that's scary. The unknown, the void of not knowing who we are is scary for people, for humans. And the truth is, you become more of you, more of the amazing, wonderful, loving, zestful, joyous, free, creative person that you are, that you truly, truly are. My beautiful love, Angela. Do you have, I want to say I love you, I adore you. I do. You're the most amazing person on this planet. You really
I'm in good company.
and I love our times together. Like we live so far apart, and I love Zoom because you know I've been wanting to do this. I'm like I have to drive to another state. I was going to drive to you to do this, and now we have Zoom. So I'm grateful for the pandemic in a lot of ways because it has opened up so many new ways to be and show up. And I'm actually having deeper connections with people because right here we're captive. um, would you like to share anything in completion and wrap up?
Uh, I'll just say that, you know, the opportunity to share here, um, it's been a healing process for me too. And like I've had a lot of stories I've shared a little bit before, and at the end, I'm not going to get into big ones. I'll try not to, you know, but it's there's been like a lot of checking in about what do I feel comfortable. I mean, being on a video, like once you release it, there you go. And we, you know, like I want to be genuine and authentic and share my truth. And so in the same sense, like I'm learning to let go of a lot of judgments and ideas as I'm going through this. So I appreciate that opportunity. We're talking about, you know, creating boundaries, and we're talking about how, you know, sometimes we grow through adversity, and there comes a point where we also leave certain situations, and so many, you know, different parts of my internal committee like are questioning, like, well, what do I bring up here, what do I say in a day and age when more and more we're getting censored or deleted, or more and more, you know, I brought up in another video that like I've had an experience with stalking. So I'm trying to balance what can I say and be genuine and authentic without saying something that gives me away, you know, or makes me unsafe. So I'm very resonant with you and the idea that we have to really be in this process of self-care. We really have to be in this process of always discerning. And if we are going to continue to grow, we're going to have to move out of our comfort zone. Whether for me right now, that means putting myself out there in a world where for a number of reasons, I'm not sure that I should. But I also have this like light rebel that is kind of like, you know, I can't enable a process that is sick by making myself more quiet. I just have to appropriate how do I use this tool that is my voice, or this truth that is my story. And if something doesn't work, then to cut it out as an act of self-loving. And so, I mean, I just want to say, like, everything that we're suggesting everyone else does, like we're doing that in our own life in real time too. Like we are, you know, you are never alone, I am never alone. And whatever happens in life, you know, like I don't want to talk about like my deepest, darkest, hurtful things, but I'm going to, you know, to an appropriate degree, because none of us can be judged by our adversity. we well, you know, I'm not going to say we can't be judged. People may judge, and we may even judge ourselves. But the truth is, it's really not the adversity in our life. It's what do we do with it? How do we cultivate something bigger and better and more loving? Not being the victim to it, but in spite of it, living well. You know, I've heard it said that like the best vengeance is a life well lived.
Yes.
Like one of the dark features of, you know, withholding forgiveness is that you might have vengeance, but on the other side of that, letting go of it and being free and loving in spite of, no matter what happens, like that's what I'm all about. And I just want to invite and give permission for more of that. Like, let that be your victory cry too. And even the idea of perfection as somebody who does healing work. You know, I just want to say, if you're another healer, there's no shame in having life that brings difficulty to you. As a matter of a fact, going through that adversity and breaking through is the very reason that you can have more compassion for the people that you work with, and feel resonant and understood and held by people who've gone through something similar. It only makes us better when we have our own breakthroughs. So honestly, the more life brings to me and the more I give loving back, the more effective I am in every part of my life, and the more effective we can be in how we support each other through every part of our life. So yes, that's the personal note I want to end it on. And also the thank you to everybody for holding that space and still being here if you're listening.
Yes. I want to agree with all of what you're saying. And thank you for listening, for being here. Thank you, my beautiful angel girl. I call Angela Angel Girl because she's an angel in my life. You've always bring so much kindness and sweetness and connection. And I am grateful that we have a beautiful friendship. So grateful for our friendship. And we're champions for each other. There's so much more I want to say. So we got to wrap this up. In closing, we love you. I love you. Love is given. I invite you to go to my webpage and sign up for your sessions. I'm here for you to support you. This is Loving with Hadia, the podcast, and it features me and my beautiful Angela. HadiaLoving.com. HadiaLoving.com is my webpage. You can go sign up for your sessions and let me support you. And if you're called to work with me, please do. If you're called to work with Angela, reach out to me and I'll pass forward. There's no competition. Who you're called to work with, show up for yourself. I have my life coaches actually, and my co-counselors. Ever since I started doing this journey of mental health, emotional health, literally since I've been 12 years old. I spent a lot of money. Like when I was a kid, instead of going to the mall, I went to my therapist and turned over my check to him. And back then in my day, you could just give them the check and they'll just sign it and deposit it in the bank. Your mental health, emotional wellness is very, very important. It's very important. Show up for yourself. And remember, as always, love is given. You are born loving, amazing, wonderful, zestful, joyous, free. Remember who you truly are. I love you. Angela, we both love you, and we'll talk to you later. Bye, everybody.